Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome, SBI listeners, readers, and viewers. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI, a management consulting firm specializing in sales and marketing, dedicated to helping you make your number. This is the weekly SBI podcast, and its purpose to help you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they make theirs. Today's guest is John Suh, and he is the CEO of LegalZoom, who is trying to reshape the legal industry by offering convenient, affordable, high-quality legal solutions. John has been with LegalZoom for 11 years, and prior to this, he was CEO of StudioDirect and Casting Group after a stint with the management consulting firm LEK. He has both his undergrad and an MBA from Harvard. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Okay, today's topic is connecting the corporate strategy and the sales strategy. We're going to use SBI's revenue growth methodology to guide our conversation today, specifically pages 51 to 70 and also pages 155 to 194. If you want to follow along at home, get a copy at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. All right, let me set the show up. This show has 3 segments. Segment 1, we will discuss corporate strategy. Segment 2, we will discuss sales strategy. And segment 3, we will discuss connecting the two. So stick around for segment 3. That's where the fireworks are going to happen. All right, John, let me dive into your corporate strategy, and I'm going to ask you some high-level questions that will give us some context here. So first, what is your mission for LegalZoom? And when I say mission, I mean, why do you exist?
Sure. The North Star that really guides the company is to democratize law. We feel that access to the law is a fundamental right, without which, if it's priced out of the reach of the average individual or the average small business, then this economy and this democracy doesn't work as intended. So we shine a light on what I call the middle, the industry focus on the barbells of the 100 largest law firms and partner profits serving the S&P 500 or 2,000 of the largest companies and very high net worth individuals. That's a ton of attention in the legal world. And then access to justice for those below the poverty line, a very important area. But when you hear, listen to the media or listen to the legal world and their own articles and journals, 90% plus of everything written or talked about is at both ends of the barbell. And what they've forgotten is that the middle is in a crisis that's growing out of control. So the average American, the average small business owner can no longer access to the law. And the rate of pro se, which means one or both parties can't afford a lawyer, for example, the state of California for something as important as a divorce, has gone from 1%, meaning 1970, 99 out of 100 Californians, both people had a lawyer. That number has dropped. So it's 67% pro se right now, meaning 2 out of 3 Californians can no longer afford a lawyer versus 99 out of 100 30 years ago. So this is what we really do. We want to democratize law and make it affordable, accessible, and higher in quality for the average person.
Okay, so that's a great mission. That's a really good reason to exist. Let's move to the next question, which is vision. So what do you want to become?
It's interesting. We've had a lot of debates around the exact wording of this, but the notion for us is we will become a modern law firm with the caveat that it may not be a firm. But we want to be the central source for modern legal solutions, utilizing a platform of people and technology. So we need to integrate lawyers into the legal solution, find great lawyers, arm them with great technology, and surround them with a cast of people to create the best possible customer experience. Because the best possible customer experience isn't just a lawyer, but you need people that focus on the user experience or marketing or sales or customer care or paralegals. And so we want the right supply chain that is optimal for quality and efficiency. And we think that modern law firm may look something more like a networked platform then it's definitely not the traditional law firm with pyramids of one partner for every 7 lawyers that needs to replicate that pyramid and therefore charge extraordinary rates.
Yep. Okay, very compelling mission, very clear vision. I like the concept of the right supply chain. Let's talk about your brand. So how do you serve your customers?
So most people are intimidated by the law, or they're distrustful of the law. Sometimes it's, they say that 1 out of every 2 American households experience a legal need each year. But the majority of, whether it's a small business owner or an individual, will either do nothing because they don't know it's a legal need, or do nothing because they think they can't afford the solution. And so most people are unprotected.
Interesting.
So our brand in an area that feels specialized and people don't know, there's a good term I read in The Economist that we're a credence good. And I said, what's a credence good? It means that when you provide the service, you're the only one that can judge the quality of the output, right? Because it's so specialized. If a doctor gives you a shot, you get better. Do you know it's from the shot, or would you have gotten better anyways? Right? It's kind of hard to evaluate, was that the right medicine to give me? And with legal, it was that the correct will. Well, I won't be there when it actually goes into effect. So how do you judge the quality of it? So in contrast to this system and this customer experience, LegalZoom really stands for transparency, warmth, professionalism.
That's a very compelling
we want to be the lawyer with great bedside manners, both professional and caring, that gets to the heart of the matter in plain English.
Yeah. When I hear the word warmth, I don't think of the legal profession. So if you can make that happen, that's quite a change that you will have implemented. All right, let me move on to the next part of describing your strategy here, which is objectives. So what must you achieve?
The critical thing for us is to create solutions that effectively position the company as the primary care of law. So forgive me if I use medical analogies, but I'm the son of 2 doctors. And my mother was a pediatrician in primary care. My father was an endocrinologist working with diabetics, which is a highly specialized area.
Okay.
And when I think of that, is there's one doctor, if I ask you, or any of the listeners, who is your doctor, most people will have an answer.
Yep.
Right? 9 out of 10 people can name one or multiple people.
Mine is Dr. Terry here in Dallas, Texas, yes.
Now, if I say, who's your lawyer?
I know my law firm, but I can't tell you my lawyer.
Yep, and your lawyer for your family.
Oh, that I don't know, yeah.
Right?
I don't have one.
So, for some reason, there's an expectation that you only have a lawyer if you're uber rich, right? Yet, there's a lot of parts of the law that affect us on a day-to-day level. So when I think of the lawyer that you turn to for your everyday needs, which for me would be probably more in the estate planning, typically is that primary care lawyer. A family lawyer can be a primary care lawyer. Your small business lawyer is your primary care lawyer, meaning if anything legal comes up, that's the number I call to say, what do I do? Can you help me, or can you connect me to someone that can help me? So that primary care relationship is the first person you turn to when you have a legal need. We want to own that position in the marketplace and devise solutions to be that first place that they turn.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that we fulfill it, because if you get to something, if we analyze the situation and say, wow, that's a very complicated tax issue, I need to send you to a tax attorney. Yep. Or I need to send you to someone in litigation. The most important thing is people get to the right solution for their needs, and someone within the industry, this credence industry, has got to be able to guide you. Okay. And that's the place that we want to own in the marketplace.
Okay. So we understand your mission, your vision, your brand, and your objectives. Let's now talk about your markets. So the legal profession, broadly speaking, has got several sub-markets, and it's a very big market in and of itself. So where do you compete?
So we compete in the primary care portion of that. So I would say on the personal side, estate planning, a little bit of family law are the cornerstones of our business. And then on the business side, we focus on small business law, which is largely around forming the business, helping run it, keeping it compliant, employee issues, et cetera, and then intellectual property. So if you think about LegalZoom, you can define 80 practice areas. we are really about estate planning, intellectual property, and small business law.
Okay, very good. And let's move now to competition. So who are your competitors? Who do you compete against?
It's funny. We have 1,000 online competitors. But really for us, the competition is non-consumption in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. The fact is, if 2 out of 3 people do nothing with their legal need, that's the market that we address. We get people protected that otherwise would do nothing because their existing solutions are priced out of the market. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd say if you asked me 7 or 8 years ago, I would have said, you know what, our competition is the solo practitioner because that's who is currently servicing most of the middle class and most of small business owners, right? A lawyer kind of opens up shop on a retail street, one person, outfit, and that's who services the bulk of our customers, being small business owners and individuals and families. But at the same time, I think in mass there are about 350,000 of these solos. Their average income has dropped from $75,000 to $49,000. So these are not the lawyers that
wow.
our firms may pay to do this kind of stuff.
Yep.
This is a very different set of lawyers than the corporate law that many of us in business kind of routinely interact with. Mm-hmm. This is kind of the shop on the corner. Mm-hmm. And I believe non-consumption is probably the primary competitor of what we do. Solo practitioners, we could say, would be the other piece of things. And then I don't really think of the online competition today as our primary competition, largely because, we probably grow our second largest competitor market share organically every year. So as each year progresses, our share of the market increases quite significantly relative. We're a bit like Coke without a Pepsi today.
Okay, very good. All right, so we're here with John Suh, the CEO of LegalZoom, and today we're talking about connecting the corporate strategy and the sales strategy. And this segment 1, we're methodically going through the corporate strategy. I have one more question on this because we've covered mission, vision, brand, objectives, markets, and competition. The last thing I want to talk to you about, John, in this segment is advantage, meaning what is your competitive advantage? In the academic theory, you're either going to compete on product differentiation or low price provider or the customer experience. So what is your competitive advantage?
So I'll give you the business school version, and then I'll give you my entrepreneurial version.
Okay.
Our advantage is our people. I'll start with that. A company is really no more than a set of people aligned against a specific goal, and we are the largest provider, so we have the largest team, and I would say the most talented and experienced team in the space. Not because, we've done this incredible job recruiting, though we have, and we have a great culture and all of that. It's much more because we're going down a path that no one else has gone. So most of the experiences, skill sets, and understanding of how to succeed come from doing something that no one else actually does. So we're kind of creating our own skill sets, our own markets, our own teams, our own solutions that haven't really, the market hasn't experienced it, and there's no direct corollary. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things is having this team that can adapt and innovate and create is the critical thing I think of. I think about UPL as one of the regulatory issues that we deal with. The foremost expert in the U.S. is our general counsel and our outside counsel. Outside of that, there isn't, that's probably our second chair on the council, internally. There's really no one external that's had to go in front of 30 state bars and succeed 30 times.
Okay.
So a lot of what we do is so unique. On the traditional business school side, we're the first mover. Yeah. We actually weren't, in fact, the first, but we're the first to achieve brand recognition as a legal solution. When I first did our brand studies, LegalZoom's market share in the U.S. for Americans with incomes above $50,000 was 1% plus or minus 1%. Then I took the 10 largest law firms in the world, and their market share in brand perception was 1% plus or minus 1%. Today, LegalZoom has 70% brand awareness. Yeah. So that's a huge advantage because we're a trusted solution, and it's cost us a lot of time, money, blood, sweat, but we're the number one most recognized brand. We're the first mover. We're the largest. We spend more in technology than the revenues of 99.9% of the competition. In fact, we spend more in technology than even like the third largest competitor in our space, their total revenues. So I think we have a huge advantage in scale and in brand. And in many ways, we've created tools that other people haven't needed to. For example, we're a law firm in the UK. We're the first U.S. company to own a law firm in the UK. So I think there's a lot of unique things from being a first mover, but those are the specifics I turn to.
Okay, very good. All right, this is all very helpful. We just heard from a CEO of a well-established firm and a household name on what his strategy is, and it was very clear and very compelling. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're now going to dive into the sales strategy, and in the third segment, we're going to connect the two. So stick around after the break. You're listening to the SBI Podcast.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI, and my guest today is John Suh. Today we are discussing connecting the corporate strategy with the sales strategy, and we're using SBI's revenue growth methodology to do it, specifically pages 51 to 70 and also 155 to 194. Get a copy at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016 report. Before the break in segment 1, John and I discussed his corporate strategy. During this segment, we're going to discuss his sales strategy. So let me dive into this a little bit more deeply here. And John, from your seat as a CEO, specifically this is what I want to hear from you, is describe your sales plan. In other words, how are you going to make your revenue goal?
Well, I think it's important to say whether you're a marketing-led company or a sales-led company, right? Because we're a little bit odd in the world in that we spend quite a bit in media. So we're in TV, radio, SEM, SEO, affiliate, online advertising, online video, social media. So we're spending across all media channels, and we have a large sales force. So we have 1 million plus conversations with our customers each year, customers and potential customers. And so when I think about it, really for us, making the sales plan is a very coordinated effort between marketing and sales, both of which are quite significant investments for the company.
Yep.
So now we need to coordinate on, and we think of it as one, in the conversion funnel, marketing needs to cost-effectively drive leads, and sales are the critical lever for us to close them. And we need to carefully coordinate between what we do in the website to cultivate a lead, to score a lead, to, et cetera, on one side, and the other is how do we engage and connect and create them into one of our loyal customers?
Yep.
And how do we earn that relationship? So I think for us, we're unusual in that it's hard for me to say whether we're marketing or sales-driven because they are equally critical to our success.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a customer of yours, and it's a seamless process. It really is, from engaging at first with marketing and then dealing with sales. So I agree with you. You are unique in that sense. Let's talk about the sales engagement model. So you have a very sophisticated marketing engine, and you've established this incredible brand awareness, and it's driving all of this demand into your sales force. So how does the sales team convert buyer interest into paying customers?
So when we take a lead, for us, it's a lot about creating simple connections to our customers. So when we think about engagement, we begin, we have a kind of an odd thing about LegalZoom, that most people come to LegalZoom in a heightened state of emotion in one of life's critical moments. Now, the law isn't always considered an emotional area. But we have an incredible amount of emotion that we deal with at LegalZoom. An entrepreneur that's leaving their job, taking their life savings, and betting it on the idea that they've been thinking about for the last 10 years, it's a very emotional moment. Most people doing a will, the biggest trigger is someone close to them has passed away. Or they're about to go into surgery or something potentially life-threatening, or they've heard difficult news. If you even go into trademarks, you're getting a customer that has people treat their inventions, their trademarks, like children. Yeah. They're very emotional, very protective, very secretive. So often what we do to connect with our customers is listen. So we are there's kind of hard sell, direct sale type of structures where people are trying to close at all times. A lot of times we're part therapist, part advisor, and by earning their trust in understanding of their situation. So, for example, every entrepreneur believes their business is unique. You need to understand why they feel that way and how they're different from others, and then cater to them. So I think critical for us in cultivating leads into customers is establishing an emotional connection with them, which is why we don't time calls. If someone asks a question, answer it. Yep. If it takes 2 minutes, great. If it takes 20 minutes, great. Form the connection, help people out, earn your place, and good things happen. So we have, despite a massively metriced organization in many ways around the efficiency of media and cross-channel and scoring leads, et cetera, and I think we can be more sophisticated there. We're fairly data-driven in that process. Our value system approach is always about listening, earning their trust, being transparent, and taking care of them. And it's much more value-driven, I would say, around the quality of the customer experience. And that's very critical, I'd say, to our sales approach in having a Net Promoter Score as high as we do.
Okay, very good. So we've heard a little bit about your sales plan and how it's really a combo plan between marketing and sales. And we just heard that you use this empathetic, listening-based engagement model with your customers, because when they call you, they potentially are at a high state of emotion, and you are focused on making these connections as opposed to maybe some efficiency metrics. Let's move to the organizational model. What type of channels do you sell through? What type of people do you hire in sales? Everything from how you set quotas to what your compensation philosophy is. Tell me a little bit about your organizational model and your org philosophy in the sales department.
I'd say org philosophy is in flux. Ed, I'm sure you'll be interviewing shortly, has had a very ambitious and comprehensive plan to reshape the delivery, basically the whole sales model, to where we're going as a business and how we're pivoting rather than what we've done historically. So in the first chapter of LegalZoom, where we only sold online legal documents, it was much more of a one-call close type of setup. As we moved, let me close a last will or close an incorporation or close a trademark. When I think about how we started, it was very focused on the transactional side of the business. In 2010, when we opened up legal plans and established relationships and started focusing on the primary care of law, we moved aggressively into an advisory position, right? And moving back off of a hard sell to simply an advisory consultative approach. Because as we learned more and more about our customer base being entrepreneurs as the primary, they want options and they don't like to be told what to do. So if you can give them options and make them transparent, they will make their choice, and that's a much better way of earning the business. So I'd say just on the tactical side of things, we have an inbound and outbound team. We once had them as separate. Ed has hybridized the roles, which allows us great flexibility. So if 30% of your sales force is trained in multiple areas, meaning I can do estate planning, I can do wills, I can do trademark, then we can properly adjust to the seasonal aspects of a given product area and the kind of hourly fluctuations, et cetera. So I'd say we have currently now a blended sales force of inbound and outbound where people are cross-trained to an exceptional degree. And that may shift going forward into 3 or 4 versions of those hybrids. So it may even, people will always be tasked with learning multiple areas, but we may be in a skills-based workforce management model, using the data to channel each call to the most appropriate person, meaning we have the capacity available and they're most skilled at closing that particular need, or they can connect with that particular customer better because they're a restaurant expert or a real estate investment expert, or in certain states the connection might be, southern to southern. Who knows what it might be? Mm-hmm. But what we've done is really think of a model using some massively upgraded and highly expensive infrastructure enhancements to do skills-based routing and workforce management in a way that we've never been able to do before.
Okay.
So I'd say how we're organized is fundamentally different today than it was a year ago, and it will be different a year from now than it is today. That's evolving.
That was one of the reasons why I was excited that you're going to be on the show, is because you've been the CEO there for a long time, 11 years, and your company has continued to innovate. You're creating a category, basically, and as you've done that, you bring new things to market, which requires an adjustment to all aspects of your business. Today's focus is sales, and you just explained very nicely how you've made those adjustments. Just picking up on that a little bit, and I'm going to lump these last two questions together and call them kind of sales enablement and support. Everything from when you bring something out that's new, how do you get the sales team ready to sell it? And what types of, and I think you referred to it as massively expensive infrastructure, have you put in place to help the sales team be successful?
Well, we're closing in. For us to be putting double-digit millions into the technology infrastructure over an 18-month period is a fairly significant investment.
Yeah.
And what we've done is take a look at our contact center. What we've done with Salesforce and some of our contact center technologies, and we use a mix of best of breed that we are actually just a month into the post the implementation of phase one. Those tools. I'm probably not going the direct. Can you want to repeat the question so I
can sure, no problem. Actually, you were doing great. You were answering the question. I was asking you, what do you do to enable the sales team to be successful? And then the second question was, as you continue to evolve and bring out new things, how do you get them ready? The sales team that may, start.
How to get them ready.
Yeah.
It's so how we're organizationally structured now is. We have our sales team that focuses on reporting, analysis, management, and then we have a separate shared services team that trains, that creates the training programs, the onboarding of folks, that serves both customer care and sales, so that we can speak in one voice and are trained in the same approach. Because often we take a question that comes in or a problem they've experienced, and that can translate into an opportunity, right? Because all of those customer contact points are ways to earn a relationship, right? If you take good care of a problem, you can really get a customer for life. So we have a shared services that supports the team, but the analysts and reporting and sales ops are all within sales. So that kind of 1-2 approach takes all these new products and services. We're very fortunate in that we can have state-of-the-art training and centers. We made a decision 3 years ago to buy 50 acres in Austin, which is an amazing city with amazing talent. And so we have a 209,000 square foot facility that we revamped and built to exactly our needs. That gives us tons of expansion space. And we have dedicated unique training rooms that for classroom training, online training, and then shadowing of folks. We take them through a process, and we've now taken an 8 to 12 week training process, because it's fairly difficult to get 50 state nuances correct. We're in an odd area that if you immigrate to this company but you're on one visa, then in this state you may only be able to do an S corp but not an LLC. And these are issues that everyone needs to master. And it's there's a 40% fail rate from most people. So as they go through the training program, we've actually narrowed that down. They're now targeting more 4 to 6 weeks. Wow. And a shadowing process so that people are hitting the floor instead of an 8 to 12 week conversion curve where they start to maximize the connections and closes, right, given to a lead. It usually would take 2 to 3 months for a given class to hit their potential. People are now hitting it much faster, so they're getting onto the floor faster and they're being more effective. And a lot has to do with very specific tactics and details that Ed Arsenio, I'm sure, could speak to in great detail.
Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, listen up, CEOs. If you're listening to this, what you just heard there was a CEO who has a good command over the sales strategy. If you are a CEO and you're watching or listening and you don't have the answers to the questions that I just laid out for you, I suggest you figure it out ASAP because it's essential. And if you don't, you can't connect your corporate strategy to your sales strategy. If you want to accelerate the rate of revenue growth by integrating the corporate strategy and the sales strategy, you must be able to answer all of these questions. And quite frankly, there's quite a bit more, but we're trying to keep this brief. So start with those. Listen to what John has shared with us today, and that would be a good running start for you. All right, we're going to take one more break, but stick around. When we come back, we're going to talk about how putting these two things together can accelerate revenue growth. So you're listening to the SBI Podcast.
Do you have too many things to do and not enough time to do them? Is finding time to learn best practices almost impossible? The SBI Podcast is your solution. Turn time spent exercising, commuting, and traveling into productive learning time with a subscription to the SBI Podcast. SBI Podcast listeners get unique insight into real-world sales and marketing issues through interviews with your industry peers every week. Find us on iTunes by searching for Sales Benchmark Index Podcast and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI, and my guest today is John Suh, CEO of LegalZoom. Today we are discussing integrating the corporate strategy with the sales strategy, and in segment 1 we discussed corporate strategy. In segment 2 we spoke about sales strategy. This is segment 3, our last segment, and we're going to discuss connecting the corporate strategy and the sales strategy. So John, I'm going to ask you some advanced questions here, and sometimes when I ask these, then the people I ask them to can't answer them. I hope you can. If you can't, no big deal.
We'll see.
Yeah. So how do you make sure your sales team can articulate your mission, which is what you explained to me in the first segment, in every interaction with their customers?
I think that's easy for a company like LegalZoom because we're mission driven. Yeah. It starts from recruiting and training. If we look at someone and they're going to be competent, but we look for a different element in our people, which is whatever happened today, if you help someone, does that make it a better day or are you just nonplussed? Because if we hire people that enjoy helping other people and we can create a community around it, then we know that the mission of democratizing law will both inspire and guide them going forward. So we actually have a very value-driven approach to recruiting. And then our onboarding process, one, we do town halls 4 times a year. And then we do sales offsites specifically with the sales team. But the mission of the company of democratizing law, we shared that in very explicit detail, and the construct is there's actually a process behind developing a mission and a pyramid that you need to develop. And we went through a process with a partner, and we actually sat down with every single person in the company in groups of 20 to 60, and I went small group with everyone to articulate that, answer questions, and then we build that into the onboarding. Right. So the one thing I'd say is 5 years ago, if you asked what's the mission of LegalZoom, you would get 4 or 5 different ways that people would say something that get to it, but it wasn't as crisp. I think now, I'm going to guess 90+% of people say democratizing law.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you really, in that answer, you answered my next 2 questions, which is great. And it's astounding to me to hear you say that you sat down basically with every single employee in the company, and you've got a fair number of employees in these small groups, and, went toe-to-toe with them and explained all these things. That's how important that concept of democratizing the law is to you. So for the CEOs that are listening to this, it's one thing to have a mission on a wall. It's another thing to have a vision that you can articulate to investors. Another thing to have a set of values that you put on a poster and, staple in people's rooms. And it's quite another thing for these things to be alive in your organization. And as it relates to influencing the sales force, it requires that type of engagement. Doing what John just did, which is spending his personal time to make sure that everybody in the organization got on the same message of democratizing law. Because these salespeople are your front line. They're engaging with your customers, and they have to be able to articulate that. If they don't, your strategy is at 50,000 feet and it's not getting executed. John, one thing I wanted to follow up on is you talked about hiring, and you're a mission-driven organization, and you're hiring people who want to make a difference in other people's lives. To me, that's very much of a behavioral type of interview. So what is it, like you're interviewing for a certain value system? Tell me a little bit about how you make hiring decisions.
Well, in the old days when I remember I joined the company 11 years ago, and there may have been 40 or so folks at that time. And at that point, our execs would interview every semi-senior hire. And when we looked at it, did they smile? Were they active in their communities? I don't care how they defined it. It's their circle of friends. It's their church. It's the city that they live in. It's their state. It's their country. Do they give of their time, of their energy on a regular basis? Do they have a history of that? Those are people that care and are active. There's one thing, I really only like values that translate into action. So I want to see what they did that connected them to other people. And in the interview, do they connect to other people? So we said, we got to hire people that care. And if you don't get that empathy from it, we used to be probably outlandish, and we'd have 8 to 10 interviews for any one person, and everyone had a veto.
Interesting.
So it's when we're scaling my biggest concern is that we might lose some of that entrepreneurial spirit and that mission-driven quality of the organization. So we were paranoid about not making the wrong hire, and ensuring that as we grew from 40 to 100 to 200 to now 1,000, that we would be consistent across the board.
Right. Earlier I asked you what your advantage was, what your competitive advantage was, and you talked about your people, and you gave some real examples of the, kind of extreme expertise that you have in your organization. When your sales team is talking to a customer and you're competing with this non-consumption competitor, how do they communicate that advantage, that of your people, as a compelling value proposition?
It's funny because we don't have a formula for this, but I can see the results. I just actually last night was with a consultant that came to LegalZoom, listened in on calls, and interviewed probably 3-4 dozen, and trained some of our folks. And I actually met him for the first time last night because I'd seen his name. I'd been on calls. We'd never gone face-to-face. And I wanted to say thanks for the work. I'm at a social event. And he said, you have a crazy sales team. They're not what one would expect out of a typical sales team, but they will execute incredibly well. They're wildly passionate about what they do. They're engaged, and they will run through a brick wall for the customer and for the company. And he was asking, how does that come? And I think part of that is being mission-driven, and then you attract folks that thrive in that culture, and that consistency allows you to do things that other people can't do.
Yep. I've been around your sales organization, and I've met Ed several times, and I have the same feeling. I mean, this is what we do for a living, and your environment is very unconventional, and yet it produces the results that you've had over the last 11 years. And sometimes I look at it and I try to put my finger on exactly what it is. You guys have an X factor, and you said there's not a formula for it, and I agree with you. I don't think there is, but whatever it is, you should figure it out and bottle it up and make sure it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. So it's like I look at so much. I mean, when Ed first came on board, and he's been with us for 2 years, and he set forth, we have an exceptional team that may be metriced on the wrong things, that may be trained differently, and maybe organized differently, and compensated differently, and then we'll change the recruiting. And so I was like, so basically it should change everything. Not immediately. 90 days I'm going to assess, and then we'll figure out where we go, and then I'm going to move pretty rapidly from there. He's had such an ambitious, comprehensive plan from recruiting, training, systems, hiring, And he's still on that plan, but the radical, I've never seen an organization, and we're not a huge company, but with over 100 people on the floor on just sales, now closing on a few hundred, that it's really his leadership on the day-to-day level and his constant reinforcement with the teams. He's a fantastic communicator, but he's a strategist that connects, and that's a really important skill set in a sales leader in our type of organization, because he can connect to the rest of the organization with the VPs, because so much of his success is cross-functional, right? The systems within Salesforce and obviously within marketing and within operations and customer care, because they're handing customers back and forth and what's the appropriate transfer, what's the appropriate protocol. And we actually allow people go from customer care into sales. And 3 years ago we said, no, there's a DNA for customer care and a DNA for sales. They don't match. And Ed looked at it and said, I don't think so. They care about the customer. They're persuasive. They're compelling. In this model where we push engagement, authenticity, transparency, and he changed compensation, so it's not just sales-based, but it's a balanced scorecard and quality control, and everyone is going to be evaluated on 2 to 3 conversations every single month. And so he kind of changed the culture in very material, substantive ways, and from the communication throughout. I think the secret's it's that team approach, and it's in the leadership of both Ed and his key lieutenants, all the way down to directors and managers.
Okay, excellent takeaway value. We've taken up too much of your time here. That was a jam-packed show. So for the audience, let me try and summarize the essence of what we discussed today. Most CEOs have well-developed strategies, as John demonstrated today. However, a strategy that does not get executed is worthless, and it's in the execution that many companies fail. In B2B, the way a CEO strategy gets executed is it comes to life every day through the actions of the sales team. If the sales team is not driving the CEO strategy into every single customer interaction, it will not deliver the desired results. This is why you care about what we spoke about today. So if you find yourself trying to drive the execution of the strategy, lock the CEO and the sales leader in the same room and don't let them out until they integrate the corporate strategy with the sales strategy. If you want to make sure you get this right, consider having one of our experts help you with this, because sometimes it's a lot harder than you might think. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/contact if this is of interest to you, and we'll send an expert out to see you. John, on behalf of our audience, I wanted to thank you for your time today. You were very passionate, and it's no surprise to me that LegalZoom has become such a household name these days. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, and I need to take a moment to thank the audience. This show has become #1 in its category. Thank you for all of the support. To show our appreciation, we invested in the new SBI app. We want to make it as easy as possible to consume our materials, so we developed the app just for you. This way, our educational content doesn't get lost in a sea of email. When something new comes out, we just send you a push notification, and all you have to do is click. So check it out at the Apple Store. Until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.